We've been looking at Elon Musk all wrong. He isn't just building companies, he's taking humanity from one system to another. Calling Tesla a car company is as wrong as calling SpaceX a rocket company or Bitcoin just a currency. Elon has taken us from a world of slow progress and legacy thinking to a new system based on first principles and exponential change. This is about more than tech, it's about shifting the Overton window itself. What society thinks is acceptable is being rewritten in real time, and Elon's at the center of that shift. Let's explore what that really means. We got Cern Basher here with us today. He's a chartered financial analyst. He runs his own investment advisory firm called BrilliantAdvice, providing wealth management services. Welcome, Cern. Thank you for joining me again.
Hi, Herbert. It's great to be here. And yeah, I've realized we've been looking at this all wrong.
We have, and Elon himself has been leaving breadcrumbs. And the reason we're doing this show is because I'll show the table you created that Elon liked, and it kind of just shows what exactly Elon is doing. It's a little bit more clearer after you see this. So let's get right into it. You start off with this intro slide.
Yeah, we talked about this last September. We did a show about Musk Inc., all of Elon's companies as being a disruption machine, and we'll review a little bit of that in this show. But really, the new sort of way of thinking is on the next slide. Really, what Elon is doing with all of his companies, and some companies very specifically, he's taking us from one system of being, one system of thinking, to an entirely new system, right? And so we've got these legacy systems where you make incremental improvements. And then we're moving to these new systems that are based on first principles and this exponentiality associated with them. So we'll get into this in a little bit more detail in a minute, but it's across the board. The breadth of what he's doing across all of his companies actually is stunning. And it's also kind of increasing year by year.
I like this table a lot. Like I said, we'll cover this in a little bit more detail later, but I love it. Like there's just a couple things: human labor to robotic labor, human intelligence to digital intelligence, right? Limited connectivity to global connectivity. And then of course, it's not just what they're doing, but it creates a whole new, lack of a better word, system, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we'll serve the audience well if we kind of build this up a little bit. And so if you go back to to this slide, so I did a post back in September. We did a show on this, and I said that I discovered that Elon's companies, I think, are going to disrupt more than 100 companies in the S&P 500 in various ways, which accounts for about 50% of the S&P's market capitalization. Now, before you said and done, actually, it may end up being more than that. Again, because I think he's adding to this list of disruptions. When you look at his company list, and this next slide is from last September, where X and XAI are separate companies. Now they're one. He's got a group of companies here that are addressing all kinds of different areas. And as we headed into that We Robot event back in October, that was kind of an interesting slogan for the company. And what I did, Herbert, on the next page was sort of think about what they might be really for the other companies. Using that same kind of format, right? So for Tesla, We Robot, right? Everything Tesla makes essentially can be an autonomous robot, whether it's a car, whether it's a humanoid robot, whether it's a big battery system that just sits there and optimizes itself, right? It doesn't actually have to move. It can still be a robot even if it doesn't move. And then XAI, we think they're building the brains for everything. X is about connecting, whether it's connecting people with each other, connecting ideas, connecting transactions, right? Facilitating money flows eventually. So that's a pretty broad concept there. With SpaceX, this is a little bit tougher to narrow down to one thing, but ultimately we explore, it's getting humanity off the planet, exploring our solar system. Neuralink, it's we enable. It's really more than this, but at least initially it's we enable. It's giving people, the ability to do things that they have not been able to do. They've lost through injury or illness. And so that's pretty amazing. Eventually, it's really going to be enabling us to put a supercomputer in our brains. That's the long-term opportunity there. And for the Boring Company, it's we tunnel, but the purpose of the tunnels is to move things, right? And so this is a pretty big, bold, plan, right? This is a big vision, a big future for these companies. There's a lot to each of these different companies and where they're going. But I think it's even bigger than this. Now, just before we leave this topic, this little chart was good enough to share on the next page recently here in June, this gentleman from the Mideast shared my post. Now, back when I first did this post, I didn't put my name on it, so he didn't give me any credit. But this resonated, I think, with people. I think people understand, right, what Elon is trying to do here, and this was a fairly simple way of showing it, right?
Yeah.
And
I
so
like this a lot. What I like about it, so obviously it's there's many ways you can do this, but part of the whole theme is we progress, which I like. But in another way to look at it would be we thrive. Yeah, we thrive.
Yeah.
We survive. We free. We survive. We survive. We survive. You know, like it's survive and thrive.
I did a version for investors, and for Tesla, I put we have, and for the other companies, I put we want, we want, we want, we want.
Okay,
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Lots of different ways of slicing and dicing this. Okay, and then in our show, this is a gentleman that posted it in June. Yeah. So in our show in September, we went into some detail, sort of the disruption potential for the various companies, and we won't belabor the point here today. We covered it, I think, pretty in-depthly in our September show. But basically, the idea is that each one of these companies is going to touch many industries and disrupt them in more than one way, right? And it really leaves virtually, I think, in the end, probably no company in the S&P untouched. Okay, so if that's not big enough, let's extend that a little bit. But before we do, let's come back to this. We talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago. I had put together a list of, initially it was, I forget how many, maybe 50 things that Elon has unveiled and contributed. And this list now has expanded to 115 items. They're color coded. My attempt to kind of make them stand out a little bit better. The Tesla items are in white. The SpaceX items in green. We've got the orange items for the Boring Company. We've got X, AI, and X in blue, and so on. We've got the Neuralink in pink or purple there. And then some of the red things are they don't really fit with the companies, just other things that he's done, whether it's a school video game that he built, Musk's Foundation, etc. 14 kids. So obviously, the point with this is look at the breadth of things that Elon has contributed to the world so far, right? And the guy's only, 55 years old? Maybe 54, in that range. This is impressive. And I don't think he's done yet. And so let's think about maybe a framework for what's coming and sort of how we can think about this. So I put this post together. And again, Elon liked this post. We'll just sort of show that here on the screen just to show. I just happened to look at my phone right as he liked it. And so I just grabbed a screenshot because it's like, oh my gosh, here he is. He liked it. Otherwise, you wouldn't necessarily know or realize that he did. So that kind of told me something, that I was kind of onto something as far as an idea. Now, obviously, it would have been better if he would have reposted it or whatever, but fine. A like is a like. We'll go with that. And let's think a little bit more deeply about what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, let's take a look what you wrote here. It's taking us from one system to another. Here's another way to look at what Elon's contributing to the world. And that's that first slide we showed. We'll go into that. So it's just wrong to call Tesla a real world AI company as it was to call it a car company. It's more than just a real world AI company. Open your eyes. It's much more than that. Elon's taking humanity from one legacy system based on analogy and incrementalism to new systems based on first principles that exhibit exponential improvement.
Now, it's been interesting because in the Tesla community, we've been arguing now for years that Tesla's not just a car company. It's a real world AI company. It's a sustainable energy company. We're all trying to label it. But even that is an incorrect way of thinking about it. Okay, it's much, much bigger than that.
Yeah, the statement you made at the bit, I wish I had grabbed it and made it even bigger, because I think for investors and people who care about it, this one here, that one, right?
Yeah.
Elon's companies, right, are likely going to disrupt more than 100 companies in S&P 500 index that account for more than 50% of the index market cap. Like, these are not just these 6 companies, 5 companies. They are creating multiple things that are disrupting everything, that then allows this new system, because it's not just, I'm taking one product and I'm selling you a better product. It's creating a whole new system that allows Tesla to basically capture all of them. Not that that's their goal, but it's his goal to try to change the system. And a side effect of that is it allows Tesla and all the other companies to then just take over a lot of businesses that it used to be the old way. Yeah.
Now, I think that this is wrong. I think now it's probably going to be 100%.
Oh, shit.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right.
100%. That's a little too much.
No,
But
it's not.
yes.
It's not. Actually, it's not. And let's talk through that as to why. Right. And so if you would put up the new diagram on the screen, this also relates to the work that Tony Seba has done in terms of the stellar economy. If we're moving from a world of what he calls extraction to this world that Elon and Tony Seba and others called abundance, or stellar in Tony Seba's case, everything that we have in the old system is virtually useless in the new system. Let's just kind of run down this list in some detail. Okay, so all of Elon's companies, to start with, have a different way of thinking. Where instead of thinking about a linear problem solving, it's thinking about the exponential opportunities, right? And there's all kinds of studies and comments that have been made about how Elon's companies are structured and how people think and all that. So we don't need to go into that here. But that's the first thing. Let's talk about the Boring Company. So we are used to a world where we've got 2D roads, right? It's on the surface of the planet. There's a few cases where we've got elevated highways and there's a few tunnels that go under water or through mountains, etc. But we haven't really taken a 3D view of the world. And the Boring Company will allow us to do that. We're in the early days of that. But in reality, that could make traffic congestion a thing of the past everywhere in every city in the world. That's just a matter of time, right? There's no reason that we have to put up with congested roads ever anywhere in the world at some point. Again, we're not even close to addressing that yet, but we're in the infancy of, we now see that that's possible. And you can save then the surface of the planet for parks and for people instead of automobiles and stuff. Suddenly it makes everything in the world just that much nicer. Okay. Now, I'm not suggesting every road goes underground, but every road that needs to could. Neuralink. As humans, we know that we're biologically constrained, right? Every single one of us knows this. So why not, excuse me, why not enhance human capability if you could? And now initially the low-hanging fruit is to enhance human capability for people that have lost some capability. That is incredible. If you're blind and you can see again, what an amazing gift that is, right? Or if you're paralyzed and you're able to feel again or do things, that's an amazing gift. But again, it doesn't stop there. Ultimately, it gives us a chance to enhance human capability. Sure, not without risks, and it's kind of scary. But ultimately, if we're going to compete with AI, we need to be AI capable ourselves. Big, crazy idea. Okay. SpaceX. We have internet service all over the planet, but go into the middle of the forest, go into the Arctic, go into an ocean, nothing, dead zone. SpaceX solved that. You now have high-speed internet basically everywhere in the world, or if not, it's coming. Global connectivity to high speed, incredible. And then the bigger idea with SpaceX is we move from a single planet economy to a interplanetary economy. Again, that's a long way off, but that's what we're building towards. Talk about economic growth opportunity, right? We're now not just limited to our planet and our planet's resources. We now have a much bigger, solar system essentially to explore and to grow into. Okay, let's come back to Earth a little bit. Tesla. We all know about the amazing manufacturing ability that Tesla has, right? They've taken the traditional assembly line. They have the machine that builds the machine. Now we're talking about the unbox process. They are revolutionizing the way things are made, right? We're going to see that with Cybercab. When the humanoid bot starts to make itself in various ways, that'll be then another step in that process. And that relates to the next one, manual manufacturing to hyper-automated production. The next one, we live in a world right now where our money, our currency is a centralized, government-printed money system. That's all we've ever known. That does not work. It will not work in this new system that we're moving towards. It has to be 24/7. It has to be instant. It has to be reliable. It can't be something where, you save all your money and put it in something that erodes in value over time. We need a better system of money, right? So Tesla owns some Bitcoin on its balance sheet. That's the first start in that whole thing. Elon's not necessarily driving that, but maybe he will at some point. So on down the list. Tesla Energy, we're moving from a fossil fuel-based extraction economy to renewable energy. Tony Seba has talked about this at length. The benefits of this are absolutely enormous. You drive down the cost of energy towards zero. You then have unlimited ability to have all the water you could ever want, right? You could reforest deserts. There's all kinds of things that you can do. And of course, we see that AI data centers are huge energy hogs. So if we're going to have this future of AI, we need cheap energy. So again, I hope that people are seeing the interrelatedness of all this stuff. It's not just about Tesla, moving to EVs, the next one, which has huge implications from a cost perspective, from a health perspective, right? Get rid of internal combustion vehicles, cars, trucks, and buses, healthier population. It's cheaper, etc. Human-driven transportation is deadly. We are terrible drivers. We're killing people on the roads every year. We're distracted. We don't really want to do it. People say they enjoy driving, but you know what? They're telling us another thing. They're showing us another thing. So transportation is going to go autonomous. Jensen Huang of NVIDIA said anything that moves will be autonomous. That makes sense. The next big one on the list is human labor. Sorry, I skipped over insurance. Human labor. Insurance is important, but minor in the whole scheme of things. Human labor is probably one of the biggest on this list. To go from human labor, which is limited, and to have new human labor, you have to have kids, raise them, and then maybe 15, 20 years later, they're productive citizens. Now we can have robotic labor that you build it in a factory, walks out the door, and instantly starts adding value to the economy in ways that humans can't, because robots can work 23 hours a day. Tesla Solar, centralized power generation. We're moving to a decentralized personal utilities. Lower cost, more reliable. And then XAI, right? We're going from human intelligence, and that's amazing. The knowledge that's on this planet is incredible, but now we can condense that into one small device, and we'll have digital intelligence that'll be smarter than the collective human intelligence. Also, we're going from traditional media to citizen-driven information. We're decentralizing information and narrative, which is very important. And also related to that is censored or filtered information that we have today to unfettered free speech and truth-seeking. It's a very important concept, and this is why Elon's been very, very vocal, and it's the reason that he bought Twitter. It's related to all this stuff. And also, I would add that his venture into politics is also part of this. You can't have a successful new system if you've got portions stuck in the old system. And again, Tony Seba has said exactly the same thing. So what I'm saying here is no great revelation, but I'm just trying to put it in the context of Elon's various companies. I'll pause there, Herbert. I feel like I've been ranting.
I wanted you to explain all of this in your own words. There's a few things here that I get when you say one system to another, and a few things I don't know if that's the way I would have described it. So, gas cars to EVs is very, very product. I would rather have called this dumb cars to smart cars.
Sure.
Or smart transportation.
Yep.
Right? Because the point is that it's like you're taking an old system, which this is just a vehicle, just a car that takes you one place to another. This is a whole system, right? Smart transportation.
It's the combination, though, of going EV plus the brains in the car that allows for what you're talking about.
Yeah, to have a screen, the computer in the car, that this is actually a robot on wheels, or this is actually a computer with wheels, as opposed to being the other way around. Just it's a wheels, it's an engine with wheels. And then you said Bitcoin here, but actually maybe X is going to create money, and XAI might create money, XAI money, right? That's coming soon. And then that could be the beginnings of some sort of digital, whether they're going to use Bitcoin or some sort of digital money, digital currency, right? Which is, it's not just the currency, it's bigger than that, right? I don't know what the words are. Payments are more than that. It's bigger than just payments and currency, right?
Well, there's two purposes to money, right? One is utility and one is store value. So there's all kinds of digital methods to have utility with money, right? You could have it with any of the digital, cryptocurrencies that are out there today could be used as currency, and some are better than others because they can handle high transaction volume. But the second part of it, store value, is where they all fall apart. and where Bitcoin is really the only one.
The only one that can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a digital society is where we're headed towards.
Yeah.
And then eventually even the economy, this whole thing's going to change the entire economy, especially with the robotic labor and so forth. So, you know what I mean? Like there's this product to product kind of explanation. One product's being replaced by another product, but then there is this whole, you know, societal impact, economical impact, like just everything's going to change because of this new system. Yeah.
Now, one of the implications of this, and I just want to state this, is that I often hear from people that, you know, Tesla is this, that, and the other thing, and they shouldn't do anything else. And I think people may have felt that way. Like, let's say when Tesla was making EVs and then they start selling the Megapack, they probably said, how does that fit? And well, okay, it's part of the sustainable energy. Okay, we get it. And then they roll out the robot and they're like, what's that got to do with sustainable energy? Why are they doing this? Right. So there've been different points in time where I think where Tesla shareholders have kind of scratched their heads and say, how does this fit with the mission? Right. And so what I'm trying to show here is that the mission actually is far bigger than we realize. It's going to continue to get bigger. Right. And the reason is, again, if you're going to be in this new system, you have to change everything that's in the old system. Right. The new system is not going to be, you're not going to have abundance if you don't have robotic labor. And of course, if you're interested in going to Mars and having humanity be on Mars, then you have to solve for all these things. This really is within Elon's mandate, and it's only going to get larger over time. As uncomfortable as that may feel today to say that, I think that's the truth. In essence, what's happening here, well, first of all, let me just say this, that Elon is not the only one moving us from one system to the other. Okay? He's not the only one in the world that understands this or has all the answers. There's plenty of people that are working on various things, but Elon's unique in the sense he's got all his companies tackling so many different things. That's what's unique about him. There's this notion, Herbert, of something called the Overton Window. And I wrote a post about that this morning. And I labeled it Tesla, Bitcoin, the Overton Window, but it really relates to anything that Tesla or SpaceX or these companies have done. So let's talk about what the Overton Window is a little bit, and then we'll kind of come back to this, how this relates to Tesla. So the idea of the Overton Window is it's a concept that defines the range of ideas, policies, or opinions considered acceptable or mainstream within a society at a given time. So you can have on the right or on the left ideas and policies that are unthinkable, right, or radical. And then as you get closer to the middle, they become acceptable, sensible, popular, and then you've got policy around that because everybody agrees. The Overton Window, though, is something that is not stationary. It can shift. And I see Elon, among other people, as single-handedly being able to shift the Overton Window. Having X as a platform that he owns helps him a lot because he can get his ideas out to 200 plus million people instantly. Right? How many people repost Elon's post whenever he writes something? How many people comment on them? The media reports what Elon says. That happens with other people too, like Trump and other world leaders. But Elon has a megaphone. So from that standpoint, it was very smart for him to buy X because it ensured that his megaphone would stay on and no one could turn it off. Right? So in addition to giving everybody free speech and those things, very important, he assured that he had a megaphone that could never be turned off. And that is very valuable if you were to shift the Overton Window to ideas that may seem radical or unthinkable. We're using rockets in space, right? Putting chips in people's brains, converting the world's transportation system to EVs, digging tunnels. The list goes on and on and on. I remember when Elon talked about the idea of reusing rockets, there were some, very smart, people in the field that said that could never be done. They laughed him out of the room, right? And Elon has proven those people wrong. He's proven people wrong with EVs, right? I think the head of the Porsche family at one point, when Elon received an award as kind of the up and coming executive of the auto industry years ago, someone asked him if he felt threatened by Elon Musk, and he said, "No, EVs are a sideshow. They'll never amount to anything." So Elon, through his success and his experience now, has the ability to shift this Overton Window. So let's just dig into this a little bit more. Again, here's another definition of it. So it's, as they say here, it's a concept used to describe the boundaries of public discourse. What ideas are seen as reasonable or in the realm of possibility, and which ones are seen as extreme, radical, or unacceptable. So if you are a politician, you better know where the Overton Window is. And ideally, you should know where it's going. because in the middle is what's acceptable to the public. And if you support something that's outside the Overton window, you may find yourself out of office very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So what you find is the left and the right, if we define the world in those terms, constantly trying to shift the Overton window so that their ideas become more acceptable. And that's the battle we see playing out in the media all the time. It's the battle we see playing out on X all the time, right? So this is a very, very important concept. And if you're someone like Elon, who's got some big ideas that most of the world doesn't even understand or know about, you need to be able to shift this window over time. And this is one thing he's incredibly good at. So
I think it might be a good idea to give examples at this point of what this is. I can imagine that.
Yeah.
So obviously the big one that Elon is working on is the woke mind virus. Many people think that the woke mind virus is fine, right? Is this because it was battling the other side? Yeah, go ahead.
So here's some good examples, Herbert. If we go to the next slide. So alcohol.
Good. Yeah, okay, good.
Right. During Prohibition, right, people had pushed the Overton window to the edge and alcohol became illegal. And they quickly discovered that that really wasn't a good idea. And so the Overton window got pushed more to the middle, right? And now we're in a world where if you go to the next slide, it's more in the middle, right? States regulate the sale of alcohol, private firms are allowed to sell it, et cetera. Right. So we've moved from, both extremes where there's no laws about the production, sale, and consumption of alcohol. Anybody can drink it. Kids at McDonald's could drink it. To alcohol's illegal. We're in the middle.
Now we'll go to middle. Okay.
Right. And we've seen this with other substances, most recently marijuana. Right. It's the Overton window had shifted with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it constantly shifts back and forth. It's not a static thing at all. Another example, which is huge, is women's suffrage. It used to be all the way at the other side, at the end, no woman may vote. And now it's perfectly acceptable for all women to have full voting rights. I think is there anybody on the planet today that feels otherwise? Maybe there's a few, but not many.
Mm-hmm.
Right? At least in the United States. Maybe not the planet. Maybe that's a bad example. But in the United States, I think it's universally agreed that women should have the right to vote. And this was a battle for a long, long time to shift the Overton window and get these rights. We sit here today and we say, oh, okay, yeah, sure, no, this is obvious, but it wasn't back then. Firearms, same thing in this country, right? And we kind of maybe have it in the middle right now. So that's one example. Another example is an education policy where at one extreme, all students must attend federally controlled schools. At the other extreme, no government policy on school attendance, no government-run schools or public funding on education. This is a constant battle back and forth. And that window's shifting. So you can pick many examples, basically everything that there's public discourse over, you can apply this Overton window concept to it to kind of see where we are in the spectrum, okay? So here's another example from not too long ago. Electric vehicles scar the environment, right? So people put their ideas out there in an attempt to move the Overton window one way or the other. They're subconsciously doing this. I doubt that this guy who was writing this article was consciously trying to shift the Overton window. But whenever anybody writes on X or anybody goes on TV or anybody does anything publicly, they're contributing to where the Overton window is on a particular issue. And so actually this one's kind of interesting because if you go to the next page, he's talking about the harm of mining cobalt, right? The disposal of EV batteries and how harmful that is to the environment if it ends up in a landfill. Right, all these very scary things to try to influence public discourse. And the most ironic thing about this is at the very end of this, permission to reprint this blog post in whole and part is hereby granted, provided by the author and the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. This is the group that came up with the Overton window concept. And here they are using it to try to shift the window on EVs in what we would say, I think, in a very negative way. You can use these things for harm or for good, I guess, depending on what side you sit on of that view. And so to come back now to a present day situation, Bitcoin. So with the advent last year of approvals of ETFs, the Overton window shifted where that now is policy. We now have ETFs that you can buy Bitcoin in, and that seems to be accepted. I don't see anybody fighting that anymore. And now, if you go to the next one, Herbert, we've got discussion about the US and other countries building strategic Bitcoin reserves. So that was considered radical at one point, and now it's starting to become more of a mainstream, more popular idea. And so now that that's happened, the politicians are actually able to create policy around it without fear of getting booted out of office. And just, one last thing on this. We now have I think there's 160 companies that have Bitcoin in their corporate treasury. Tesla there is now number 11. They were in the 10th spot until yesterday when Coinbase added more and jumped over Tesla. Okay, so again, it's becoming more mainstream, this idea of companies now investing in Bitcoin as in the corporate treasury instead of just cash and bonds. But for a lot of people, this is a horrible idea. It's unthinkable. It's crazy. It's stupid. It's risky. But again, the Overton window is shifting. So we can just pause there for a second, Herbert. I think that for me, when I look at what Elon is doing with all his companies, everything that he's tackled is an uphill idea because it seems so crazy when you first hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Autonomous humanoid robots? Are you kidding me? How is that going to work?
Mm-hmm.
Rockets that can land themselves, reusable starships? You're nuts. It's never going to work. Part of that process to making that work is to shift public opinion and viewpoint over time, particularly if he needs government support for anything. Now, you do that over time by showing a track record of success. I don't think anybody believes that SpaceX will not solve the problem of rocket reusability at this point. They've done it with boosters. It's just a matter of time before they'll figure it out with Starship, right? And I think we're also at the point now where most people realize that autonomous humanoid robots are coming, right? So that Overton window has shifted from the unthinkable radical idea to now, okay, it's a matter of time. And that's particularly good when you have a situation where some of these things also, they're changing the world, but also it's going to mean job loss. And there's some negative impacts of these things too. So it is important that politicians are now starting to see that that window has shifted and they better start thinking about it and building policies around it to protect the people that are harmed by it. Again, Elon's involvement in politics is an important part of all this. If you're going to develop this technology that changes the world, you better make sure you cover all the bases. Mm. And so it is part of the mission.
Yeah. The way I think of Elon is that the good news about him, and certainly the way he positions himself, is that he thinks about the future. He lives in the future. He goes, what is a good future? What is a bad future? I want the good future. Here's the missions I would want to support now to get us to there. And so then he creates the products and then he goes physics first principles to achieve what that could look like. Mm-hmm. As opposed to, right, which is what most CEOs do today, is they'll go, what is a good business to make today? And it doesn't matter in a way, it kind of does, but it doesn't matter for many, that if I can make a lot of money, creating this tchotchke that is going to just be all plastic and sell it, but I'm going to make like $10 billion, I'm going to go and do it. I don't, okay, whatever happens to the environment, that's, everybody does it. I don't care. I'm just going to do that business. Elon's thinking about a good future. And then he backs out. Then he picks the things that are going to make the most difference. And then in part of your Overton window, I can see that, lots of examples. You threw out a few. Just the robots, right? You and I were here about just literally a year ago. It's now August, a year and a half ago in January of last year. If you asked the public, what's the likelihood of humanoid robots being successful? And I don't know, 90% would have said never in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And then now it's probably 50-50 or something like that, wherever we're at today. Same thing with autonomous vehicles, right? We've been all testing FSD for 4 years. It's been failure, no progress. And everybody would say, never in my lifetime will there be driverless cars. Now it's happening. So it's hard for anybody to debate whether or not that's even a possible. But you need to get ahead of it so that you can shape public discourse, which is, like the... what is good for society, and make sure that it doesn't go bad, because it certainly can. Robots can become bad. We just need to do this. So, yeah, that's what I mean. I just want to make a point that I think with Elon, he at least lives in the future, and he goes, okay, that's what I want. How do I make sure it's positive? And that's why he created Neuralink, right? He created that because he sees he was talking about AI, a bad AI doom kind of scenario. Before anybody even think that AI, they would just discount it. AI can't even do spell check rights. Get back to me when they can do spell check. That's when he was already preparing OpenAI, when he was already creating he's launched Neuralink. And it was a good thing he did that, because it's like you're chasing time, because now AI is leapfrogging. Now everybody's, oh my God, I didn't realize it was going to be this smart, Yeah,
no, I think it's important. I think that it's helpful to have him and maybe there's a few people that can clearly see the future.
Yeah.
And then work backwards to figure out what needs to be done today to get there. And then figure out along the way, oh, by the way, these are the risks, these are the tangents that could happen. I need to make sure that's covered as well. Now, it remains to be seen whether Elon has thought of everything, right? And I wouldn't expect him to. This is a very complicated, difficult thing to figure out. But he certainly seems to be more capable than most in that regard. But I wanted to share this because I think that a lot of people are still uneasy, uncomfortable, confused, and I see people trying to say, okay, it's okay for Tesla to do this and that, but not these things. And I think when you really step back and look at where we're headed, some of those other things may be important too. Now, I wish that Tesla didn't have to do everything, right? But the good news is I think there are plenty of other players that are contributing to this. It's not just Elon and SpaceX and Tesla, et cetera. There are other players here too, but Elon certainly seems to be at the center of much of this. And that's exciting for Tesla investors because he's the head of the company you're invested in. But at the same time, it's this other side of the coin. It makes people very uneasy because they see him being distracted with all this other stuff that doesn't seem to relate to the Tesla mission. And I think my main point is that it does.
Can you speak a little bit more to the nuanced difference between a mission-driven kind of perspective and this disruptive societal and system change that it's actually causing? So like, I think majority of Tesla investors already understand the mission-driven. Like we've seen how Elon is a mission-driven person.
Yeah.
He has a mission. I want sustainable energy. I want sustainable abundance. I'd like to have free speech. These are mission-driven kind of goals. And then that's why he explains what he's doing, right? I'm going to buy this. I'm going to create this product. I'm going to do that. But what you're saying is a little bit more nuanced in that this is, I guess, could you say that in his path towards being a mission-driven person, it will then disrupt entire systems and entire societies, and then it creates even more opportunities. And then the world that he's creating is going to be a better world because it's no longer incremental. It's much more first principles. It's the things that actually could solve world hunger, poverty, like the things people couldn't realize. And even though they're, is that what? Can you explain a little bit more about that? The difference between what you're presenting today versus what most Tesla investors already understand, which is mission driven.
Yeah, I'll try to. Let's just say that we are, in the Stone Age, and that you and I can clearly see where we are today. Okay. And then we work backwards and say, okay, how do we get from the Stone Age to where we are today? Oh, here's the first step. We need to do this. Okay. So we create a company that's mission driven to do that thing. Because that's a step, because it's an incremental change, most people will be on board with that because they can see just one step, right? We need better tools or whatever it is. Doesn't matter what the specifics is, but we see we need better tools. We start a company to make better tools.
I'd invent the wheel.
There you go. Right? Invent the wheel.
Or fire wheel.
Yeah. Well, they had fire in the Stone Age.
I'll go with fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I had the wheel.
I did invent the wheel. Wouldn't that be great? I invented the wheel.
Herbert invented the wheel.
Come on, guys. Come on over here. Let me show you something.
Yeah. Right? People probably thought they were crazy. What are you going to do with that round thing? That doesn't stay stationary. It rolls away on you. That's ridiculous. So my point is that if you can see the bigger picture, you now recognize that there's all these steps along the way, but you have to recognize that society at large is not going to be able to see that bigger picture. So you have to bring them on step by step. But yet as a leader, you have to think in total. And I think that he and Tony Seba and others see some of that bigger picture. Maybe Elon sees more than most. And he is able then to affect change now and organize now to make sure we're on a pathway to hit those different steps that are required. And as we are observing it now, we're looking at it and saying, oh, he's doing SpaceX for this, and he's doing Tesla for that, and Neuralink and Boring Company. And we're kind of piecing it together. And then he introduces something else to us. Now suddenly it's humanoid robots. And we scratch our head for a while and we say, oh, yeah, okay, now I understand because he's explaining to me this, we need robotic labor if we're going to get this to this world of abundance. Okay. Now I'm envisioning some point where he sits us all down and says, here's the advantages of digital capital.
Mhm.
And suddenly we say, oh yeah, you're right. We can't have this fiat money system in this new world. It's not going to
Well,
work.
except if the economy is, we got abundance of energy and abundance of robot labor, then you don't need money. Where we're going,
Maybe,
there's no roads, there's no
maybe.
money.
Yeah. There's
It's all
the here be dragons between here and there, though, right?
he's thinking though. He's
Yeah.
obviously every once in a while you can see his little thoughts bubbles coming out, going,
Yeah.
I wonder what would happen if there is this economy that is abundant.
Yeah. And my main point with all that is if you're heading into this hopefully abundant world, but also very uncertain because you just don't know, would you rather head into that world with a little bit of capital or the most amount you could get your hands on?
Mhm.
The answer to that, I think, is pretty clear, right? Hopefully you don't need it. Hopefully capital is a thing of the past, and who cares, who cares if you're a billionaire, trillionaire, or have $2 to your name? That won't matter in the future. That would be cool. But what happens if that's not the future, right? What happens if having capital still does matter in this world of abundance? So you've got to make sure that you are covering all your bases if you're thinking, 16 moves ahead, so to speak. So hopefully I've articulated
Yeah.
that in a way that
Yeah,
makes
that is
sense.
good. Yeah. Let's just get back to this before we move on here. But basically, what I like as a Tesla investor is that Elon is involved in all these companies, and you've talked about how they're all creating together this whole new society, this whole new economy, this whole new system, disruptive, transformational, digital, right, connected, all that labor, but they all support each other.
Yep.
So if you were creating human labor and you're a manufacturer because you made cars and now you're making robots, but you didn't have access to the digital intelligence that XAI is working on, or the neural, like all these things, or the Starlink, for example. I'm still waiting for how could Starlink help with robots and cars and all devices that have cameras, right?
Mhm.
There's probably some built-in Starlink connectivity to everything. Yeah. So, anyways,
Well,
how
that's
each
easy to answer
one
that question, Herbert, is that if all vehicles are connected, that they basically are a brain,
one brain, yeah,
right?
a coherent brain that's
Yep.
all working together like a hive, or
Yep.
the swarms of
Yep.
bees or ants, that they're all working together and they're just more
Yep.
efficient. But my point is that, boy, I'm invested in Tesla, but XAI, SpaceX, Neuralink, and all the other things he's working on, it's changing the entire system. And so I'm glad I'm part of it, right? Like if I create cars that are autonomous, but then he's making Bora Company that creates whole new urban transport. They just announced, didn't they, that there's going to be a whole new, there's the Las Vegas loop, and now there's the Music City loop, the Nashville loop. Both of those are using Teslas. And
As well
eventually
as
they'll
Dubai. I
use
think there's a third one in Dubai.
Dubai. There'll
Yep.
be robo vans, right? There'll be
Yep.
robo trucking. There'll be robo, and it's all part and parcel connected to creating this new society, right?
And some of these things, like electric vehicles, are just a stepping stone to the next thing, which is autonomous vehicles, right? You have to
Yeah.
do this one step before you can get to the next one.
Yeah.
And of
Smart
course,
vehicles, Cern. Smart vehicles.
smart
Thank
vehicles.
you.
There you go.
There you go. Please.
Herbert Ong's smart vehicles.
I'm like a step ahead of you. I can see the future.
You are. I'm sure you are.
It's just great, isn't it, to live? Yeah, I enjoyed that thought experiment. If I can be going back to a Stone Age or something, I would be like, even the right
Wouldn't it be fun?
industrial age guys.
But you would find it so frustrating because you'd be talking to people about these new things, and they'd just be looking at you like, "What are you talking about?"
Nikola Tesla, right? One day in 100 years from
Yeah.
now, everybody's getting small to my device. I can fit in your pocket.
I think it would be incredibly frustrating, and I can't imagine how Elon feels about some of the stuff when he talks about some of these things, and people just sort of, they just don't understand
Right.
what he's trying to say.
Because of the Overton window. And so
Yeah.
you need to if the vast majority of population thinks of something a certain way, and if what they're thinking is correct, great. If what they're thinking is, and who's to say it's what's right or wrong?
Yep.
Right? Who's to say that
Sure.
I think society should be, abundant? Well, is that going to be a better society? Because,
Some
if we
risk.
carried forward,
Yep.
there's tremendous risk of evil.
That's right.
But yeah, anyways, that's why you need to
Yep.
change Overton window a little bit. And this is great, sir. So basically, Elon companies are much bigger than we all even are thinking. And but the statement you made, which is at some point Elon's companies could take over 50%.
Well, not take over, but certainly disrupt. And I now believe that they'll disrupt virtually 100% of the S&P in some way. And that doesn't mean take over. That doesn't mean destroy them. Doesn't mean they'll go bankrupt. It means they have to change the way they conduct business in some way.
Okay, that's a better definition.
Yep.
Very interesting. And that creates opportunities for how big Tesla's opportunity could be. Yeah,
that's right.
Wonderful. Great work as always. You put in the time and effort, and we appreciate it as Tesla investors. And Elon does too. He's liking your stuff.
It's encouraging. He's encouraged me many times actually with just some likes or a little comment here and there. So that's been fun. Yeah.
He's reading your stuff and he's agreeing with your forecasts. The robo-taxi rollout, the dollar per mile. Just we'll see what it ends up becoming, but that is very interesting. Okay. Thank you, Cern. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert.
Bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.